everyone. We'll be getting started shortly. We'll let a few more people log on in. Okay, everyone. Welcome to the Ohio Aging and Disability Transportation Forum Series, number 4. With this series, we will be talking about technology and how it paves the way for the future of our transportation system. Today's forum has been brought to you by, of course, the lovely Ohio Developmental Disabilities Council. Thank you so much for sponsoring us and making a way for us to be able to put out such important information. Services for Independent Living, Feonix Mobility Rising, MORPH, and Share Mobility. My name is India Jones. I will be your webinar facilitator for today, and I am also the Community Services Manager over at Services for Independent Living. Just going to go over a few housekeeping rules before we get started. All participants will be muted. Please, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the questions box. For some reason, if the questions box is acting weird, put it in the comment box. We will attempt to answer all of your questions at the end of this forum. A copy of this PowerPoint is available for download. It's right in the handout section, so if you would wish to download that, please feel free to do so. A recording of this will be on our Ohio Aging and Disability Transportation website, along with SIL's website and archived webinars, okay? And then at the very end, there'll be a satisfaction survey. If you have a moment, fill it out. This is how we get an idea of what other transportation topics you guys are interested in, so that way we can take that into account for next year. Our first speaker is named Ryan Mankis. He is the founder and CEO over at Share Mobility. We are very, very happy to have him here to speak with us today. So I'm going to go ahead and hand things over to you, Ryan. Thank you so much for being here with us. I can't hear you, Ryan.
How about that?
Yeah, you look good talking, so, we just couldn't hear. All right.
Thank you. India, I really appreciate you having me here for the presentation today so we could talk a little bit about mobility for individuals with disabilities, as well as some of the work we're doing at Share Mobility. I got my start in transportation a couple of years back, where I had the opportunity to work with Smart Columbus, and that's where I saw firsthand how $50 million coming into a city didn't do a whole lot to serve the needs of individuals that didn't have cars, didn't have reliable transportation, and were trying to get to places that the bus didn't go. And so that's why I started this company. And my vision was that, one day autonomous vehicles are going to make everybody a passenger. But for individuals with disabilities, that reality is today. They are always passengers today. And so with our business, we serve a broad type of riders, from individuals that are just trying to get to work to supporting communities like the city of Dublin or the city of Hilliard with senior and disabled transportation programs. And so just a little background, maybe jump to the next slide for me. And keep going to the next one. So the first point I want to make, it often feels like the transportation that's available to an individual with disabilities is very low quality. Often the vehicles seem old, the providers don't have the highest quality, they're very, very small companies. And the reason this is because the transportation funding for individuals with disabilities is severely lacking. It hasn't increased in many, many years. There's a wide difference between subsidy provided through insurance, government, and there's tons of silos of transportation funding, but it doesn't all easily work together. and it surely isn't enough. And so one of the things that really needs to happen for transportation for individuals with disabilities is advocacy. And so that's something that I'm working on. Today, you might have heard President Biden talk about the infrastructure bill, and individuals with disabilities should be benefactors of that infrastructure funding. The next one for me. And this is a macro indicator, but it really is a trend that anybody who's helping individuals with disabilities get job placements should be aware of. And there's widely reported numbers that over 10 million jobs are open in the United States, more than ever. This is happening for a variety of reasons. But for all of the open jobs, many of them are far away from where people live. Many of these new jobs are e-commerce, distribution centers, manufacturing or logistics jobs that are outside of the city. And those jobs are almost always outside of the bus line. And if you have to cross a county line to get to work, the funding doesn't cross with you. And so if you're relying on paratransit services to get to work, you're often limited in what jobs you can get to because of the spatial mismatch. To the next one for me. So what we do at Share Mobility is we focus on the transportation as it relates to being a barrier to employment. And 86% of companies today don't offer their employees any help with commuting. They don't offer a transportation benefit, or they're not on the bus line, so they don't offer their employees the transit pass benefit. And this ultimately results in a significant amount of open jobs, of unreliable workforce that can't always get to work. And for the companies, it equates to lost revenue. And this is a huge opportunity potentially for your organization to help people that want jobs to get to work, because companies are losing money because they can't fill these jobs. And the power is very much shifted to the employer. The next one for me. And one thing that no one really thinks about when it comes to employment is you're buying a commute. When you decide that you're going to take a job, the employer says, do you have reliable transportation? And today, the reality is that every person is making that decision on their own. And if you don't have reliable transportation, you're not going to get to that job. And for the average commuter, if the jobs are outside of the city, they could see themselves spending over $30 a day. This is upwards of 30% of their annual income if they're making $15 an hour. But as you guys know very well, for an individual with disabilities, the transportation cost could be as much as 4 times higher due to the added cost of a vehicle. And so addressing this for individuals and getting to work has significant opportunity to impact someone's economic mobility, the amount of money they can keep from the job if you can help them address the commute. On to the next one. And so what we've done, because we know that transportation funding is severely lacking, we've made the customer the company. And companies have a lot to gain from helping their employees with transportation, and we get companies to actually fund that transportation. In exchange for companies funding transportation, they get to fill their jobs faster, they get to retain their employees. And we've designed this to be able to work in any location. For example, we're working on an RFP response for RTA in Cleveland, where we're pulling together about a dozen employers that are going to work together on a first and last mile connection into transit. And so it's very collaborative, but ultimately it's getting the companies to identify that commuting is a problem and that if they fund it, there's a lot to gain. On to the last one. And so just a couple of things about what our technology does. We've designed everything for companies to be able to determine when and where their workforce needs to go, and it's designed to get everybody to work on time. We have dynamic pickup times that incorporate traffic information, and 98% of all of our trips arrive exactly on time for work. We use virtual bus stops. Sometimes this is at somebody's front door, sometimes this is a centralized meetup area, and all of the rides are done by professional drivers in 14 to 55 passenger vans or buses. And so this isn't just any vehicle, it's not just any driver, these are vetted professionals providing high quality service. And then I think I have let's skip this slide. And I'll kind of end on this point. Helping somebody get to a job outside of their neighborhood has significant potential to impact their daily and annual household income. This is a snapshot. This is a real scenario. We have 120 employees that are based in Columbus, Ohio, coming from one neighborhood, and they are going to jobs outside of the bus line. If they were to get a job in their local neighborhood and take the bus or even paratransit services, they might be keeping $100 a day. But by getting them to a job outside of the bus line in a rural area where they're able to earn $18 a day, we're able to increase their daily take-home pay by 38%. It's incredibly impactful for people that are able to reduce their cost of transportation and otherwise get to a job that they could not reach. All right. So what we are offering to organizations like yours is we're a partner. We don't look to you to fund transportation. We look to partners to connect us with the employers that want to hire your people, and it's just a matter of getting transportation. We utilize a mixed fleet of wheelchair accessible vehicles and can serve anyone from, we serve individuals that are 3 all the way up to very elderly and transportation dependent. And so I would be very interested in meeting with your organization, understanding who you serve, what types of transportation needs they might have, and connecting with employers to ultimately get the companies to fund the need for transportation. India, thank you for the opportunity today.
You're very welcome, and thank you for sharing this with us. I just want to say that your whole concept is brilliant. So kudos to you for coming up with such a great company. And I will definitely keep your contact information because we will be contacting you in the future, maybe to speak at some of our personal meetings or even another webinar. So thank you so much.
Thank you, I'd be honored.
All right, so next we have Kate Schramm. She is the Director of Partnerships over at Feonix Mobility Rising. I want to thank you so much for coming on to talk a little bit more about your company as well. And so I'm going to go ahead and hand things over to you.
India, it looks like you have my presentation.
Okay, so back up, you guys. We have Go Ohio statewide mobility program. The slide is right in front of me. Wow. We have Lexi Petrella. She is the mobility coordinator over at Mork. So I want to say thank you for the both of you being here today. But first, we'll have you explain a little bit more about what your company does and how you utilize technology. Oh. Thank you.
Thank you so much, India. So hi, everyone. My name is Lexi Petrella. I'm the mobility coordinator at the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission, MORPC, and I lead our mobility management work at our organization for multiple counties in Central Ohio. So I'm talking about a program called Gohio Commute, which is we're now referring to it as the Gohio platform. Before Gohio was ever a thing, the state had a rideshare program. We actually had 2 different rideshare programs being used across the state. So we refer to this as sort of a left Twix, right Twix scenario, in that we had two ways to encourage rideshare and access to transportation through carpooling and use of transit. And as you can imagine, this wasn't organized. It led to a serious lack of consistent programming across the state in this area. And back in 2017, metropolitan planning organizations in our state decided to partner and release a request for proposals to develop a consistent rideshare program. And part of this meant that we wanted to pursue a joint platform provider. We ended up contracting with Ride Amigos, which is what we currently use for our rideshare platform, and that resulted in Gohio Commute. So the cohesive branding for Gohio Commute was pursued in 2017. And that's what we've been using for the last few years to encourage individuals to use sustainable modes of transportation, to be aware of carpooling, transit, and biking and walking options for their work to home commute. So that's the really important part here. This tool was for the commute and no other trip purposes. In 2018, the MORPC, so where I work, and the Northeast Ohio Area Commission, the Cleveland MPO, decided to pursue a secondary tool called Gohio Mobility. And this is different because it focuses on highlighting transportation options for all other transportation purposes. So whether you need a ride to a medical appointment, to work, or for anything else, to the grocery store, we wanted to have all other resources listed on this other tool. And this was really exciting because it got a lot of attention from the Ohio Department of Transportation in 2020. And I say a lot of things have happened with the COVID-19 pandemic, but one good thing is that ODOT got CARES Act funding, and they decided to use a good amount of that funding to make our platform statewide. So they're making Gohio Mobility and Gohio Commute a statewide platform. So all the dark blue counties that you can see on that map, this has made it so they are providing the funds to fill in those gaps and to make it so that anyone in the state can use these tools. And then if you could go to the next slide, India. So Gohio Commute, I just want to provide a little bit of a description of this tool. So again, this focuses on workforce transportation needs, and it uses gamification methods to encourage sustainable commute behavior. So this means that you're able to see your calories burned, money saved, and other things like that to encourage a continued sustainable commute behavior. Additionally, we're able to implement regional programs. So at MORPC, we typically have something called the Commuter Challenge, which means when you log trips for a certain period of time, you can win prizes and gift cards and a bike and other things. But also other MPOs can do things differently, and companies can also use this platform for their own incentives. So if let's say a large employer in Central Ohio wants to sign up, they can for free and have their own network so that they can have their own incentive challenges, whether it's for PTO for time off, or if it's for parking, you can get free parking, other things like that. It allows it so the employees at those companies could only see others in their company when they're looking for a carpool partner, and that will make sense in another slide. So there are a lot of different ways that you can use this platform to search for sustainable options to get to work and also encourage that behavior. And then if we go to the next slide, here you guys can see the dashboard on Gohio Commute. So this is logged into my profile, and it can show me the most different options to get to work. It will also show me driving, but it will show how long it will take and the distance. It's showing me bike options. And then to the right, you can see my long-term statistics from using the platform. So the sustainable miles traveled over time, my money saved over time, and the CO2 that I have reduced from being released into our atmosphere. You can also see the achievements that I've received. So I have some telework awards because I've been logging my telework. And these are all tools to encourage users to continue their behavior. This information is really important to us because at MORPC, we hope that individuals will use sustainable modes to reduce wear and tear on our roadways, so we're not spending as much on maintenance, and so we're having, and also so that we have cleaner air and improved public health over time. And if we go to the next slide, here you can see the trip planner. So this is showing me different carpool buddy options. So right now I have it as looking at a different address farther from downtown. and it was showing me different people that I can contact to carpool with. We do have carpool etiquette located on our website, so pointers for figuring out who's going to be the driver, how do you share gas and maintenance costs and things like that. But this is helpful not only for someone who just, doesn't want to drive, but someone who may be looking for an option to get to work. And you can also see different van pool, transit, walking, and biking options as well. Going to the next slide, I'm going to talk a little bit about Gohio Mobility. So this is very different. Gohio Mobility in its current state is a very simple search tool that uses a statewide inventory of transportation services. So this is everything from our public transit, so COTA, or also looking at nonprofit transportation providers, different senior services and things like that. So we have a full range of transportation providers that we're using for this tool. Individuals are able to search based on their willingness to, how much they'd like to pay. So if they want it to be free, if they need it to be subsidized, if they can pay with cash or a credit card, things like that. They can also search by their accommodations needed based on accessibility. So if they need a wheelchair lift, if they need help getting to and from the door, and things like that. And they also can search on where they're traveling from and the day and the time that they would need services. When individuals complete this search, results will come up, and then we provide a link to the website and phone number. And then it is up to them to use that to book their trip. So as of right now, it is just a simple search and showing the different options. Our goal is that this tool will help mobility managers, social service organizations, caregivers, and individuals themselves find different transportation options that support their quality of life and reduce isolation. Additionally, help with workforce issues and individuals that have challenges getting to their job or to community centers or to the grocery store. I have on here that we were hoping to launch it in the summer, and obviously that hasn't happened yet. And that's why I don't have a screenshot to show you all, but we've been working through the data issues, and we're hoping to launch it here in the next 2 months or so. So looking at the next slide, if we think of the state of Ohio as a pizza and the elements of these mobility services as toppings, I'm going to go through the toppings first. So if we go to the next slide here, and we're thinking about Gohio Commute, and we think of transit, walking, biking, sustainability, and other metrics as toppings and benefits that program managers can use. They can all use these based on their own discretion. And then if we go to the next slide and we look at mobility, and we think of resources that can serve individuals with disabilities and older adults. So those are also elements program managers can use with the Gohio based on their own discretion and their own needs. Now we'll go to the next slide and think of another level of toppings, gamification and incentives, and customization for employers and others that are creating networks. These are other ways to create incentives to use the platform and hopefully encourage access, awareness, and use of sustainable transportation modes. So now we're looking at the next slide, and we can think about, obviously our regions look very different, but if we think of this as a pizza, it gives our different regions the opportunity to use these elements for their own needs that best fits their own region, their employers, their populations that they're trying to serve. To create some coordination, if we go to the next slide, ODOT is encouraging us to develop regional coordinated plans. So right now, we at MORTC, we are leading the transit coordinated plan for ODOT Region 6, and that includes 9 counties in Central Ohio. This regionalization perspective is aimed to improve service delivery and fill seats on services, also reducing project duplication, increasing regional coordination, so more of our population is aware of what services are available and know how to use them, how to be, if they're eligible, and so that we can improve quality of life throughout the state of Ohio. But this regional perspective allows us to take a more local level perspective to understand our local needs. So we're working on the Region 6 coordinated plan that will be open for comment in early November. And this plan is really important because it's helping us understand what community resources do we have specifically in our region, where are the gaps in services, what are the needs specifically for our residents, and how can we improve these to improve education, awareness, and use of these services. So all of these things together help us support the quality of life within our region and then set us up for success with coordinating with other regions and when we think about this from the state level. So going to the next slide. So we're approaching a really exciting time. We're finishing up our transit coordinated plan for Central Ohio. And we've already put so much work into Gohio Commute and Gohio Mobility, but there's another piece of this that we're looking towards, and that's the RFP that we have open for the entire Gohio platform. We've been working with Ride Amigo since 2017 for both of these tools, but as a public agency, we are required to release the opportunity for other companies to pursue partnering with us. And that might mean that we continue to work with Ride Amigos, or it could mean that we work with another company, either for both or one of the platforms. Personally, I think that means that Gohio Mobility specifically may become more of a mobility on demand tool or mobility as a service tool, where it isn't just showing these services available, but making it so individuals can book their trips or see things in real time. I don't know if that is what's going to happen in the future. I'm not sure yet. We still have to see the proposals, which the deadline closes on November 1st. So we'll know pretty soon what's going to happen. But this is all really exciting because it's a true partnership with the entire state of Ohio, with the MPOs and ODOT representing all the other counties. And now we have a regional plan providing some direction for Central Ohio. So if any of you are curious about how this process is going, if you would like to learn more about Gohio in either of the tools or our coordinated plan, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. And I'll be happy to take questions at the end.
All right, Lexi, thank you so much. This is very interesting, and I'm really happy that we're bringing awareness to so many different resources, because a lot of this I was not even familiar with. So thank you so much. Now we're going to go ahead and and this is Lexi's information. I will make sure in a follow-up email that I send out all of the speakers' information, so that way you guys can individually contact them if you would like to. So last but not least, we have Kate Trim. She is the Director of Partnerships over at Feonix Mobility Rising. So I'm going to thank you as well for coming on to educate us a little bit more about your company and how you all utilize technology. And so I'm going to hand things over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. I'm so excited to talk to you guys today about Feonix Mobility Rising. Feonix is a nonprofit that was founded in March of 2018. And in just our short 3.5 years of existence so far, we've served in 9 states. Sorry, one of them is not Ohio, though we would really love to. There are currently 7 where we're operating, as you can see on the map. We have a very simple mission, but with a big undertaking in this statement: mobility solutions for the health and well-being of every person in every community. And it's become a really big focus of Feonix to truly take to heart the word every in that statement. We mean it, and we tend to dig into the challenges for the underserved communities with our core values guiding us. So underserved communities, we may be talking about individuals with disabilities. We may be talking about rural communities, places that tend to get overlooked in a lot of the transportation conversations. Thank you. So digging into a community is definitely our first step in any mobility program. It's really interesting when we talk to individuals or organizations that want to work on a mobility solution, they tend to go straight to the technology conversation. And I always have the difficult job of asking them to pause for a minute. The technology is critical, but our first step is to listen to the needs of the community members and the community leaders. Our cornerstone of this process is the Mobility Leadership Circle, which that's the name that we gave to a stakeholder group, would be the term most people are familiar with. So it's those stakeholders that are interested in transportation and in changing the transportation ecosystem. That group drives the program forward, setting the goals for the program and providing direction with insight about the nuances of their community. So first we go in and we learn about the community where we're operating. In most communities where Feonix deploys a program, we also have a local staff member that lives and works right in that community. Next slide. When we start putting the pieces together, technology absolutely does hold a prime role. There are platforms out there that have completely revolutionized the way that mobility ecosystems operate, and I'm sure all of you are familiar with different technology platforms. But I feel pretty confident in saying there are no silver bullets or magic solutions. And I think even most of our technology partners would say the same thing. Feonix has the stance that technology is a tool, not a solution by itself, with absolutely no offense to any technology company at all, because it's crucial, but it's all about finding the solution to fit the community or the organization and not the other way around. So we've seen that successful technology implementation depends on making small changes. When we have been part of programs where we go in and we take a transportation company, let's just say as an example, let's take a transit company from pen and paper to full-on platform where people can book with an app and book on an online web booking platform, and it goes to the dispatch system, and that's all done automatically. That's a big leap. And there's a lot of steps in between there. So instead, we chose to focus on small changes, and that tends to be a little bit more successful and a little bit more palatable for everyone involved. We also believe very strongly in several phases, several groups of beta testing. So throughout the whole process and for months afterward, customer service and training is critical for both the transportation providers and the end users. And I cannot stress this enough, there will always be complications. And I think just realizing that that is the case, being able to find creative workarounds is what can make all the difference when talking about transportation technology. Next slide. So once a technology solution is in use, the work is over, it's done, right? Walk away. Yeah, absolutely not. That, I might even argue, is when the work has just begun. So one must be cognizant of connectivity issues and the fact that not all areas have equal access to broadband or cell phone service, and always be willing to keep alternatives available for those that cannot connect in that type of way. I have on my screen that keep alternatives available through the transition period, but I probably should just say keep alternatives available, period. For example, we have learned that a call center is a must with many of our riders. I mean, absolutely no disrespect when I say that older adults request a call center the most. That's just what we have seen. Our older adult riders in any of our programs really want to talk to someone on the phone, no matter how user-friendly of an app we try to put in front of them. That goes with the next bullet there too. Anyone, including older adults, receives change, especially technology change, better with ongoing education and communication. It's not a one and done situation. People need trained and retrained and maybe trained again, or 7 additional times. You know, it's a big leap for a lot of people even to look at the different ways that they use the mobility ecosystem and try to take people from, dependence on their family member or individual car ownership and reframe a little bit to say, well, here's an option for you. And then to throw in, and also let's teach you this neat tech platform to use to accomplish all of the things we're trying to get you to change in your mindset. It's a lot at once. And so it's, only reasonable to expect that training and communication, education are going to be a huge part of the process. Next slide. So how this is playing out a little bit with Feonix, I think it's easier to get a grasp of what we're doing if I talk about a couple of our programs. N4 Connect is a program that's in process right now. This is not one that's finished, and we're really kind of in the beginning stages of this one. The goal is to create a statewide coordinated transportation system. Technology is going to play a huge role in this project, but one of the reasons I wanted to bring it up as an example is because all the best practices that I mentioned with technology and transportation are going into play in this program. The technology companies that are working with us in this program have been so wonderful about building their software using human-centered design and encouraging multiple groups of beta testers. So they love that Feonix and our partners in Nevada can take the technology to the users and play around with it, have them look at it, have them try to see what they like and what they don't like and make suggestions, and then bring it back to that technology company. They've seen that as helpful, and we've obviously loved that too, and so have the users. It's interesting, even with all of that testing, I was just on a call this morning with the CEO of one of the technology platforms we work with, and he made the comment, look, a MOS system is not a one-click system yet. It's just not here. It's close, but it's not here. There are workarounds, and there are some interesting nuances in the technology that we have to deal with at this moment. And I just really appreciated that honesty, because I think that, it helps to set the expectations, and it helps to level set that, yeah, we can do everything people are asking for in transportation right now. We can accomplish the goals, just maybe not in the seamless way that we hope to one day be able to do. So in Nevada, the deployment is going well, but again, this is another, one of those things we talked about with technology. There are transportation providers that are using several different technology platforms. It's not one technology company implemented in this whole program statewide. We're working them together in the best way possible. And some we have truly upgraded from pen and paper to an online dashboard. And so that's a huge change for them. And integrating with a passenger app, might be the next step, but we're taking it slow and making sure that everyone's comfortable in this process. And eventually they will all work together just fine, but not as a one-size-fits-all solution. Next slide. Yeah. So I also wanted to talk a little bit about the work that we're doing in the Coastal Bend, because this one started with the idea that we were going to deploy a MOS technology in the Coastal Bend. And what we found when we started working with the community members was that first, we really needed to build up the mobility ecosystem. There were huge gaps. So putting together a MOS technology platform in this region was not really going to solve their transportation issues. They needed providers. So 3.5 years later, we have a volunteer program in that Coastal Bend region, and we also have some paid non-emergency medical transportation providers. We have a booking platform for facilities to book their rides with our drivers, and an app for the drivers to run their trips. What's great about it is it might not be MOS with fully integrated the taxis and the public transit and everything like that, but it is a solution that can work in rural environments and urban environments alike. And it has a lot of options to be able to work around any challenges that might exist. There are going to be additional steps that we take in the next few years in this region to boost up the technology solutions in transportation. You know, eventually, hopefully, we do have that integration with the public transit system too, and all of them in one MaaS platform. That would be fantastic, and I think it will come. But right now, we can feel really proud that the technology situation is light years ahead of where it was when we first started working in that region. Next slide. So ultimately, what has now transpired for Feonix is that we've taken all the knowledge that we gained from the years of pilot projects that we've done, and we've developed a program called Ignite. These 6 pillars in the Ignite program go together to address social determinants of health, with transportation access as the base, but then building upon that to address employment and food insecurity and medical care, education, housing, and social supports, all the core social determinants of health. In addition, in the same way that we're addressing transportation challenges, it's really not a siloed conversation and can't be. The technology piece of this is woven into every one of these pillars, and this allows us to work collaboratively with other organizations, such as the other panel speakers in such wonderful, brilliant organizations. We can work right alongside what others are doing and not come over the top of and duplicate any services, but rather be able to fill the gaps to make a complete transportation ecosystem with a strong equity focus and looking at everyone who needs the services. I believe that's the end. So yeah, be happy to answer questions.
All right, Kate, thank you. Thanks so much for coming on. I wanted to give us Ohioans a little bit of a look into what other regions or areas are doing in regards to transportation and technology. You know, new technologies are helping to get us from point A to point B more efficiently than ever before when we really think about it. So thank you so much for that presentation. Ryan did have to step off a little bit early, but I will make sure that the audience has this information as well. I will check to see if we have any questions really quick. Okay, no, we don't have any questions. So with that being said, I just want to thank you, ladies. We had a wonderful four-part forum for our, this October. It's unfortunate that we're still going through the COVID scare, but just to stay safe, we did this virtually. So I wanted to thank you guys for joining us virtually and us being able to meet you virtually. And hopefully next year we'll be able to do something more in an in-person kind of state. So everybody, please stay safe, try to stay COVID-free, and I will look forward to seeing everybody next year for our 2022 forum series. Please take a moment to take the survey, give us some ideas on what other transportation topics you would like to hear, and we could definitely try to make that happen for next year. Thanks, everybody.